Hello, everybody. Hey, first thing I want to do today is thank all my subscribers. I really appreciate you guys. We're going to do a truggification of an Arrma Typhon, and I'll show you a couple of mistakes that I made along the way. Pretty easy to make mistakes, so I'll point those out as I go. Then I'm going to say probably if you weren't fidgeting with the camera and stuff, it took me about 15 minutes to do the second side. And so I'm guessing going into it with the proper information, you might take, say, 30 minutes, 45 minutes to do the mod. Got my helper with me today. He's helping me hold down the couch. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started on this, and I'll point out the mistakes that I made along the way. All right, we're gonna start the Truggy mods on the Typhon today. And I'm not gonna do the whole thing on camera. Just wanna kind of give you an overview. I'll do one front and one rear. And I'm gonna start off trying to use the tools that they gave me with the truck. So we'll start on the front wheel. And bear in mind, I have never done this, so we're gonna learn together. So it appears to me there's a pin in the hub. Looks like that is pinned in with an Allen wrench. Set screw, grub screw. I don't have real good light in here today, so, oh, that was it. I just didn't have it dialed in yet. That's pretty snug, so I think we're going to have a pair of pliers or a wrench to hold that. I think that was, well, let's just see. I think this is that's a 17 millimeter. Yeah, let me grab a 17 millimeter. Okay, so with that loose, this pin should push right out, and this comes off. This is going to be the replacement part, and I'll throw these numbers on here. Well, I don't know if that's in focus or not. The screen blacked out. We'll do it on this one. And I'm again going to put all the parts down below, and I'll show you the difference in these. There's the stock one, and that's the one off the Outcast. So it's got this additional little spacer area in the back, and that's it. Would it be possible to fabricate a spacer for this? I don't know, but these were economically priced, so I'll just get these, and I'll have these on standby if I ever decide to convert this back to a Truggy. I'm sorry, if I ever decide to convert it back to original. I'm thinking about 5 things at once right now, and that doesn't usually go very well. All of these pieces, most of these pieces, we're going to retain except for the actual hub itself. These ball heads unscrew from the A-arms, the upper and the lower A-arm, and I'll check in just a second. I think they're the same, but I don't know that because I've never pulled one apart. So we will check it in a second. There's some kind of a spacer on this one, on the lower, and I don't know enough about this car yet to comment on that. It appears to be for wheel alignment purposes, but I don't know that to be factually correct. Okay, that's the little spacer that was on the lower.
And these two are in fact the same length. Get over here where I have better light in case this camera's working. Those are the same length. So the only distinction between the upper and lower is this little piece right here. Okay, these are your front hubs. Part number for the front hubs. Okay, in this parts kit, there are 4 new ball retainers, one for the upper and lower on either side, and a couple of extra shims. Now this piece we will use again. This is the steering arm that's on here, and we'll reuse these bearings because the set that I got was just the raw hubs without the bearings. There are 2 Allen screws that hold this in. And as I'm looking at these, it technically does not appear that there is a right and a left side. It appears that these are identical. And I just pushed the bearings out with the Allen wrench. Put a new bearing in here, a new bearing in here, or should I say the old bearing out of the old arm. Those drop back into place right there, and then these retainers go on the outside. I've only driven this thing for 20 minutes, so going to use the original retainers and just leave the new ones in the bag. The hollow side goes toward the ball. There's this side, and there's the hollow side. Then these go back in, and these will control the tension on this. And they are going into plastic, which is already threaded. So I will turn it backwards until I get a little click. You can feel it. I don't know if you can hear it or not. Thread those in. And I'm going to make them to where they're not overly snug. These have an O-ring on them as a sort of a friction device. So in theory, you won't need any Loctite on them. And what I like to do with everything is put this down to where you get most of the slack out of it, but don't snug it down yet, because if there's 2 screws in there, if you tighten one of them down, if you don't have the second one lined up, it makes it almost impossible to start. So we'll just get the first one in enough to hold everything in place, and we start the second one in, and then we can snug them up. I had a friend that had a 71 Camaro, and he put a water pump on it. When he put the water pump back on, he tightened all the screws all the way up, and then when he got to the last screw, he put them in one at a time and tightened them as he went, and when he got to the last one, it would not go on. Okay, for the CVD, this one, the new one, is a little longer to compensate for the longer arm, and we're going to retain the axle, and we're just going to put the new CVD on there. The wheel bearing, the inner wheel bearing, acts as a retainer for this pin. See if you can see this pin. You just push this out, pushes out real easy. This is the old one, it's a short one. This is the new one, it's a longer one. So all we're going to do is just get this started in here to where it's just sticking in. Whoops. It's hard to do this through the camera to where this is just sticking inside. Put this in here, push this through, and it's flush, and that's it. The CVD is reassembled with the longer output shaft. All we need to do is push this back in through the wheel bearing. That's through. Put the axle back into the diff, and we can start putting pieces back together. And the spacer, I don't know if I need it or not with the new wheels, but we'll see. I want to put it in there anyway, and I can always take it out if I don't need it. Be sure that your axle is slid into the diff, and we're going to try to do the upper. So that one's done. The only thing that we're going to have to retrieve from the old piece inside the old axle is the retainer for the pin, and it does not appear that there was one in there. So we're just going to get that started. Now I am going to come back and put some Loctite on that, just so you know. Now we put this this hub goes on next, and this pin goes on, and then that set screw holds that pin in place. So we get this all lined up. All right, that's in, and it's flush with the hex on both sides. And I'm just going to snug it up for now. My tires haven't come in. My tires won't be here until tomorrow, and tomorrow I will be up in Wyoming somewhere. So I will not get to test drive this today. So that's one front completed. So we'll do the rear, one rear real quick. And don't lose the wheel nuts because the new hubs don't come with them. We're gonna pull the wheel hub off first. I didn't realize I had so much grass still on this car. Push the pin out. Hang on to the pin. Hang on to that grub screw. Set screw. Everybody has their own name for it. That actually looks like I'm gonna need a tiny hex wrench, which it appears they did supply with the car. Okay, that one's off. Okay, we get the same setup on the bottom. And the bottom's not a CVD, so it shouldn't be much of a problem. Different Allen wrench for that one. And the same hex. And this one doesn't have a CVD. This has just got a real actual dog bone in it. So this piece just, see if this camera, come on, wake up. Yeah, that's got better light. So when you push this out, there's no retainer on the, for this axle, for the dog bones. You will still need to use this bearing and this bearing. And for me, I just use an Allen wrench from the inside. Push this one out. It's easy enough. And reach in from the other side and push this one out. And if you alternate sides, it comes out pretty easy. If you try to force it out all on one side on these bigger diameter bearings, it's a little more difficult. So we were on this hole right here. And this one, I don't really know what this piece is for. I don't know if this actually fits the front of another car or what the deal is on this. But this one is directional, although there was nothing bolted onto that. So I don't know if a piece can be bolted onto it or not. As I said, I am a novice on this car. And there's the part number for the rear hubs. And this has a little set of washers on it, which I didn't remove any washers from the original rear hub. Okay, well these are whatever that little piece is. There appears to be a right and a left side on this. This is the one that came on. And I still don't know what those little washers are for, because the original version, as best I can see, did not have any installed on it. Just push the bearings back in. They're sealed, or the retainer is the same on both sides on these. Oh, it did have some little shims in there. Well, I didn't see where the shims came off. I will pop a wheel off the other side and see where they were. And again, this car, I've only got about 20 minutes of run time on it, so it shouldn't be a huge problem. Okay, those were spaced on the either side down here, so not a problem. So it appears it had 2 on the front, 2 on the back. So we'll get this pin back in here, and we'll put 2 of those on the back. And gosh, this has a piece of flashing on it. Okay, I cut that off. That was just part of the injection molding process, and why they didn't take it off, I don't know, but it was still on there. Get my 2 washers on there. Try to get this poked through here. And I suspect this is going to be a little fiddly to get these back in there. Wasn't too bad. I just stacked them up, put a couple of fingers underneath there to keep it in place, and it went back on pretty easy. Okay, here's the part number on the rear axles. Got that pushed through the bearing and seated. And just be sure that the dog bones are all lined back up when you put this top piece on. And we were in the inside top hole on here. So we're going to go back to the same setting that it had. And all of this may need to be changed with the new tires. I don't know. If I have to make any changes, I will let everybody know. Make sure the dog bone is in place. Okay. I realized that they had the nut on the back. I don't see where it makes any difference. So since the nut on the bottom one was on the front, I'm going to put the nut on this one on the front. If that makes any difference, I'll let you know when I have to change it. And both of these have a nylock nut, so once the threads are engaged, you don't have to go crazy cranking it down. This one actually has a shoulder on it, so you can snug it up a bit more. And we're going to go through the same procedure with this one, with the new. Again, I'm going to do this on this camera, so maybe the light's better. You can see the slight difference. So this one will go on here. And again, this is a little fiddly. You got to push from the back to be sure that the axle is sticking out far enough for this hole to line up. I don't think that's on camera. So this, if you just push on this, it'll go, the whole axle goes in too far. So you have to push on the back of it with your finger. I'm going to get this started. And when you slide it on far enough, get the hole lined up, it'll push through. Once it is centered where it needs to be, then the set screw, grub screw, goes back in. And again, this had blue Loctite on it, so I will, before I put my tires on, all right now I'm interested in doing is retaining those pins so that I don't lose them. Okay, those are done. So that's the left side and the right side. I'm not going to torture you by doing the other side. It shouldn't be any different than that. I'm going to do it off camera. If there is some difference on the other side, I'll come back and tell you what it was. If not, I'll be back and wrap this up in just a bit. Okay, I said I was going to come back if I screwed something up. And when I did the back, second part of the back, no problems. And I recognized that I screwed some stuff up on the front. And I will fix this and I'll show you what I screwed up. Get this apart in either, I'll either cut this out or speed it up. Get this back apart and then I'll show you what I did wrong. These are not reversible. Or should I just say I put them in backwards. I don't know if I damaged the O-rings on them or not, but I did put them in backwards. So I'll show you. And this piece is not interchangeable from right to left, which I originally thought it was. Looks like the O-rings are okay, so I don't think I damaged anything. And I'll show you why these are not interchangeable. There is a little tab, and it was on the original front and rear. I mean, the original fronts also had the tab. I just didn't see it. Now, why they have it that way, I don't know. Maybe it applies on a different car. I don't know. Like I said, I am not an expert on this particular car, and I wanted to show you one more thing on the CVDs that I kind of glossed over earlier. And I'll just do that on this camera. If it, see if that looks like it's in focus. Looks like it is. So what I wanted to show you, just in case you weren't aware, as I pull this out of here, this piece does come out also. So you need to be sure that that piece is in there and that your little pin is going to go through that hole. Now, if the pin goes through there and this piece is still in there, it's okay. But I did kind of gloss over that, so I thought I better go back and hit that again. So when you put the pin in there, it goes through that hole. And if it makes it to this side, then everything is fine. But I did think I should probably point that out. Now, this piece that I thought was reversible is not. And the reason being, let's see if I can do it on this camera. Whoa. There is a tiny little tab right here. So when you try to bolt that bracket down, it hits that tab. There's not a tab on this side. So these are not interchangeable from right to left as I thought they were. Now, why exactly they, I mean, it looks like exactly the opposite on either side are interchangeable, except for that little tab. And here is one of the original pieces. It also has that little tab on there. So, and you probably could just trim that tab off. I don't know if that's an alignment tab for a different car. Have no idea what purpose it serves. And you know, they appear to be exactly opposite of each other. So you could probably cut that off and then it wouldn't make any difference. Why it's on there, no idea. Maybe a part for a different car. So be that as it may, I'm going to go ahead and show you the other thing that I screwed up, which was putting those putting these retainers in backwards. And since I have the original hubs off of here, I'll go ahead and show you the difference. pretty much these things are identical to each other. The difference is this one has an extended piece right here. So that's all the difference we're making, and that's somewhere in the order of a 1/2 inch. I don't know, somewhere about that. But that's the only difference in these components. Had it upside down, but as you can see, you're looking at maybe a 1/2 inch wider, but that opens up the wheelbase a little bit. And the primary thing on these 3.8 wheels, this kind of fits up in here, no problem. But on the 2.8 inch wheels for the Badlands, the bigger tires, this thing actually hits the rims. So that's the whole purpose for these going on there, is to extend everything out. Makes it a lot better. But that was my screw up, is putting this on the wrong side. And I'll get everything put back together, and then we'll do the final wrap up. I'll show you what I've got and what it looks like as I get closer to the end of it. Okay, I think we're back on track, and you know, you kind of learn as you go. But what I am thinking, an easier way of assembly on these things is going to be once you get the CVD together, put it in here. While you've got all this in your hand, it's a lot easier to line this up the way it needs to be. Go here, drop the pin in. Very easy to do it this way so far. And now this set screw locks that pin into the hub. Now we're going to put the balls back in here. There's the other half of it. Drop that in. Oops. Drop that in. This little retainer ring fits into the back side of the hex, just so you see. And then that pushes on the ball, and it makes a complete socket out of this piece here. The ball rides in that little rounded piece. Probably should put the top one on the top. All right, that's where we're going to leave it for today. There's my pile of parts. I don't have a tire set for it yet. They should be here in the next day or two. And I'll throw those on there and we'll give it a test run.